Hi folks, HR Funk here, with something old, something new, but nothing borrowed or blue unless you consider blued steel to be something blue. What I have here is a Smith & Wesson M&P 1522 rifle, and I said something old because the 1522 has now been with us for 15 years or better, and I said something new because this specific M&P 1522 is brand new. I just purchased it a week or so ago, and I have owned a 1522 rifle almost since the time that this model was introduced to the market, but there were some differences in those original rifles from back in the day, and I was really curious as to how the design might have evolved over the years, and there were one or two things about that original rifle that I purchased that I just wasn't that crazy about. I'll talk about those as the video goes. But this is really the fault of Ryder's Range. I watched one of his videos a few weeks ago where he was reviewing a new 1522 rifle that was very similar to this one. It had the desert tan furniture and one thing and another, and I think he said that it belonged to a friend of his. But I really saw that video and I thought, I want to try a new one of these rifles and see how they're performing these days. And this is going to be the first Smith & Wesson product that I've reviewed in quite a while, so hopefully you Smith & Wesson fans out there will get something out of this. So let's get right into it. We're going to take a close-up look at the 1522 rifle. I'm not going to talk about it in quite the level of detail that I usually do because this design has been around for so long and there's a lot of things that just haven't changed. But I'll talk about some of the things that have changed. I'll talk about one or two things that have existed in the design since its inception, and then we'll head out to the range and see how this new rifle shoots. So here we go. By the way, for anyone who might be wondering, the sling that I'm using with my new 1522 rifle is something I purchased last weekend at the NRA annual meeting, and this is from McLean Corporation. This is their rapid deployment sling that allows the rifle to be stowed so you have hands-free whenever you need that, but also it allows the sling, or the rifle rather, to instantly be deployed if that becomes necessary. So watch for a full review on this sling coming soon. And here's our first up-close look at my brand new Smith & Wesson model M&P 1522 rifle. In general terms, this is a semi-automatic 22 rifle that very closely approximates the look, feel, handling characteristics, and manual of arms of a full-size AR-15 rifle. And as I turn the rifle around to give you a starboard side view, I should probably make a clarification. You're going to hear me say full-size AR-15 or full-size rifle probably several times throughout this video, and when I say that, I'm not really referring to the exterior dimensions of this firearm, which are virtually identical to those of a 16-inch AR-15 or M4 style rifle, if you will. When I say that, I'm actually referring to the rifle that chambers the full-size 5.56 cartridge rather than the 22 rimfire cartridge. Since I just mentioned dimensions, I should probably go ahead and get those out of the way right now. Smith & Wesson lists the overall length of the 1522 as being 30.7 inches, but I suspect that is with the stock all the way forward because I just measured it and it's closer to 35 inches in overall length with the stock fully extended. The width is 2 inches, the height is 7 inches, and I'm assuming that is from the pistol grip to the top of the receiver, not when the magazine is installed, and I'll talk about the magazine more later. The weight is what listed just under 5 pounds, 4.94 pounds, and the barrel length is 16.5 inches. Now, some of you might already know Smith & Wesson makes quite a few different versions of this same basic rifle. This one specifically is the Smith & Wesson M&P 1522 Sport MOE SL FDE, which is a long name. The SKU number for this is 10210, and it has an MSRP of $569, but if you shop around a little bit, you can find them cheaper than that. I purchased this one for quite a bit less than the MSRP. Now, as I said in the opening, I have owned a 1522 rifle for close to 15 years. In fact, I think it was 14 years and change when I looked at my original sales receipt because I traded the rifle that I had owned for all that time on this one. And as I mentioned, there were a couple of things that I just wasn't crazy about. Now, that rifle was very reliable. In fact, it was a rare day that it had any kind of a malfunction. It did happen, just like it happens pretty much with any 22 semi-auto out there. but that tends to be more ammo related than it does firearm related, at least with that firearm, and I'm hoping the same holds true with this one. But those early rifles had a few things that were different, one of which was they did not have a flash suppressor. They just had a barrel that came out and ended. And not too long after I purchased that rifle, Smith & Wesson started to thread the barrels and add a flash suppressor. Now, the flash suppressor on a 22 semi-auto is basically just a cosmetic feature. The only real function it serves is to protect the crown of the barrel so that if it suffers an impact, it doesn't do any kind of damage to the muzzle crown to affect accuracy. But as far as hiding flash or helping to counteract muzzle rise, there's just not that much flash or that much muzzle rise or that much gas to counteract the muzzle rise that isn't there coming from the 22 rimfire. But I do just like the way it looks better. Also, those original rifles had the older AR-15 style furniture. It had the original GI style 6-position stock as opposed to the Magpul SL stock that we see here. It had the sights that were functional. The front sight was an A-frame sight that was attached to the rails. The rear sight, similarly, was a aperture sight that had the controls, elevation, and windage adjustments of a standard A2 M16, but it did not have a carry handle. It just had the sight assembly. So those sights were functional. They were okay. The stock was functional. It was okay, but it's not really the modern AR-15 or modern sporting rifle, if you will, that we many times think of nowadays. The rail on that original rifle was a quad rail. It had 1913 rails across the entire top from the receiver to the end of the handguard. It also had rails at the 3 o'clock, 6 o'clock, and 9 o'clock position that were similarly the full length of the handguard. This one, as you can see, has the top rail, but then the handguard is what Smith & Wesson calls the Slimline handguard. It has M-LOK slots all around it, and also it comes with these rail covers, and I believe these are Type 2 rail covers from Magpul, and you can see they are textured. They are removable. You can put them in there when you want them. You can take them out when you don't want them. You can add rail sections all the way around here and basically make the rifle much more versatile than when you just were stuck with that standard quad rail that came with those original rifles. So in this new version of the 1522 rifle, the flash suppressor obviously is present, which I think really just completes the look of the rifle. It also comes with the Magpul M-Bus front and rear flip-up sights. I already mentioned the rail covers. It comes with one section of M-LOK rail that you can use for whatever you want to. I put it on here probably because I'm going to be adding a bipod at some point. It comes with one 25-round magazine. Now, one nice thing about the magazines as opposed to a lot of Smith & Wesson magazines is these are pretty reasonably priced if you want to buy extras. They're around 25 bucks depending on where you get them, so I've already purchased a couple of more to go with this one. As indicated by the rather lengthy nomenclature of this rifle, it is the Magpul edition, so it comes with the Magpul MOE Slimline pistol grip. And one of the things I notice about this pistol grip is it doesn't quite follow the contour of the lower receiver like you would expect it to. So that's something I wish they could have done a little bit differently. I don't know if it's a difference in the receiver itself, if it's something about the grip itself, but I don't particularly like that gap right there. It also comes with the Magpul Slimline 6-position adjustable stock, which has a QD sling attachment and other sling attachments there as well. Another thing about the rifle that diverges from the actual AR-15 design is the contour at the rear of the receiver here where it meets the faux buffer tube. And there is no buffer assembly inside here. This is just a piece of plastic. But there is no means to attach any sort of a sling attachment point that you would normally have here at the end. I was able to use this Midwest Industries sling attachment, and it basically screws down tight enough to hold on to this rail at the bottom of the stock. But it would be nice if they had the contour of a castle nut here, because this actually normally would fasten around the castle nut on an AR-15 and then tighten down to secure the sling attachment point. When you're using a sling similar to the one that I had when I started the video, and you want to have an attachment point here at the rear of the rifle, it's just difficult to be able to put it on. I managed to do it. It would be kind of nice if Smith & Wesson would make this a two-piece screw-in faux buffer tube, and then you could add the actual end plate that a lot of people produce that have sling attachments to them, whether it's a quick release like this or just a loop or what have you. That would probably add to the price of the rifle. So failing that, as I said, just having the shape and contour of a castle nut right there so something like this can clamp onto it. I don't think that's going to come loose. I hope it doesn't come loose, but it could be better, I guess is what I'm saying with all this. Other than being made of polymer, the upper receiver of the 1522 rifle pretty closely approximates the lines and appearance of the full-size rifle, but that's about where the similarities end. The 1522 operates on a straight blowback system, and I will disassemble this in a moment and show you the mechanism inside. I said earlier there is no buffer assembly, so all of the recoil system is contained inside the upper receiver. There is no gas system, so we don't see a gas tube running through the handguards or anything else. This is, as I said, a straight blowback rifle. Hopefully this next segment won't cause the internet to explode or YouTube to crumble or anything else, but this is described in the operator's manual. I'm going to show disassembly of this rifle, which is an end user operation. I'm not showing any kind of modification to this rifle or anything else. But I want to demonstrate that when you disassemble the rifle, it is just like a full-size AR-15. You first remove the takedown pin, just like that. The rifle is going to, trying to do this in front of the camera and figure out where to hold my hands. Going to open up shotgun style, just like an AR does. If we pull back on the charging handle, then our bolt and recoil assembly can be removed. By the way, the charging handle can then be removed just by pulling it straight out of the back of the receiver. You don't have to pull it back to the notch and drop it down like you do with an actual AR-15. So at this point, just like with an actual AR, you would be able to clean the rifle from the rear. You don't have to worry about cleaning out locking recesses or anything like that, or barrel extension. So it would just be like cleaning a regular .22 rifle, and again, you can clean it from the rear, which is the proper way to clean a barrel. So this is virtually the entire operating mechanism of the rifle, with the exception of the ejector, which is located inside the upper receiver, and it's actually attached to the rear of the barrel. But here we have the bolt, we have the recoil spring, the extractor, the firing pin obviously is in there. So this is a self-contained operating mechanism. As I said, the buffer tube is just a solid piece of plastic. So there's nothing in there whatsoever. All of the action, firing, extracting, the ejector, as I said, is still inside there, but feeding and chambering all is done by this mechanism. And as long as I have the rifle disassembled, I can show you down inside the lower receiver, and you can see all of these are standard AR-15 parts. So operation of the 1522 is identical to the full-size rifle. The magazine well will not accept AR-15 magazines. This is scaled to accept only the 1522 magazines, which I think is a little silly, because I don't know of any way you could possibly stuff a 5.56 cartridge into a .22 long rifle chamber. And if this were the regular dimensions of an actual AR-15, I could use this on my various magazine vice blocks to be able to do work on this. In any case, if I want to swap out any of these parts, I can do so. In fact, on my old rifle, I put several different triggers in there during the time that I owned it. I'm probably going to swap this one out. We'll weigh this one in just a little bit. It's actually not too bad as a GI style trigger goes. Now, obviously, this is a MIM part. You can see that it is cast, so it's not an actual GI hammer. It's probably not an actual GI trigger down in there, but I really can't see it. The only thing you might get into when you swap out triggers is sometimes if the hammer spring is a little bit more powerful than the one that's on here, you could run into some functioning problems. So if you swap out the trigger, make sure you shoot your rifle some and make sure it's going to work okay, or at least okay enough for your purposes before you go out and try to use it for anything serious. Something that I have noticed about this rifle that I absolutely do not like is the operation of the safety. Normally on an AR-15, the safety is very positive and it clicks from safe to fire. This is a plastic safety, and when I rotate this, it feels very much like plastic rubbing against plastic. I am definitely going to pull that thing out of there when I get a chance and replace it with a steel safety and see if that makes any difference. Now, since I'm going to be putting it into a plastic receiver, maybe it's going to feel just about the same. I don't know. I don't remember the safety on my old rifle ever feeling that way though, and since I don't have it anymore to compare side by side, I'm just going to have to experiment a little bit and see if I can make that feel better. I just happened to notice one other part that is definitely different from the full-size AR-15, and that is the bolt stop. I never noticed this on my old rifle, but you're not going to be able to swap that out with a bolt stop from an actual AR-15. It is different. It operates exactly the same, and outwardly it looks exactly the same, but it is a different part. So with the rifle reassembled, I can show you another minor complaint that I have with the overall design of this rifle, and that is the charging handle, which only retracts that far. I'm so used to pulling an AR-15 charging handle back farther than that virtually every time I go to charge the rifle, I pull it and my hand slips off because it just doesn't come back as far as I think it's going to. It would have been nice if they could have configured this somehow to have the same length of travel as the standard AR-15 charging handle. Again, it's a minor complaint. Now the charging handle does appear to have a catch, just like a standard AR-15 rifle. So even though the charging handle itself is different, you cannot swap out the entire charging handle assembly. I think in looking at this, you could possibly put a different latch on if you wanted to, but I'm not sure. I've never tried to do that, so don't go out and get yourself a latch and try to put it in and figure out that it doesn't work and then get upset with me. All right, it's time to find out where this trigger is breaking. And I'm going to clear out my trigger pull gauge. And yes, the rifle has been safety checked. It is definitely unloaded. So let's find out. Try to get it about midway up the trigger. And the first pull, 5 pounds, 5.7 ounces. Pull number 2, 5 pounds, 6.1 ounces. And pull number 3, 5 pounds, 2.9 ounces for a 3-pull average of 5 pounds, 4.9 ounces. So I would rate that as a little better than average for an AR style trigger, but obviously it is not a match trigger. A couple of quick things about the magazines. These magazines, as I said, are relatively inexpensive if you want to purchase more. The opening along the side makes it convenient to see how much ammunition you have left inside there. Obviously, though, that also presents a point of ingress for dirt and debris and what have you. The buttons on the side of the magazine follower make it easy to pull down and load 22 cartridges, but there is a way the cartridges have to be loaded in here in order for the rifle to function reliably. And what I have found works best, and I will grab some 22 cartridges and show you this, is to feed them in just like you would with a standard AR-15 magazine. And when the spring tension gets very high near the bottom of the spring's travel, when you get the last few rounds in, then it seems to be okay to pull down on those buttons and put the last 2 or 3 rounds in. But let me demonstrate this loading process. So here's what I was talking about with loading these magazines. If you just put the cartridges on top of the follower and feed them in more or less like you would with a standard AR magazine, they will feed in properly. And if you look at the back, you can see that the cartridges are not a single column, but they're not quite a double column either. It's sort of a stack and a half magazine, and they have to alternate like this the whole way down the magazine column in order to function properly in the rifle. If they start to line up one on top of the other and not alternating from side to side like that, sooner or later you're going to get feeding problems. Now, as I said, when you get to the last 2 or 3 rounds, you can then pull it down and probably drop those in and it'll be just fine. But if you load your magazine this way, you're going to save yourself some headaches. The other thing to be aware of with the magazines is they are longer than an actual AR-15 magazine by over an inch. That only makes a difference when you're trying to shoot from the bench. If you're trying to get good, accurate groups, a lot of times this magazine is so long that it's very difficult to get a good shooting position and not have the magazine on the bench, or have the magazine as it's on the bench holding the rifle higher than you want it to be. Smith & Wesson does, at least from time to time, have 10-round magazines that are about this long, and that would work much better for shooting from the bench, but they don't very often have them in stock. In fact, right now they are out of stock. So be aware of that. If you're wanting to do any sort of bench shooting, you might have to modify your position some or change around the way you shoot from the bench in order to try to do something like that. I really haven't found a good way yet to shoot from the bench, and you'll see when we get out to the range, I'm going to be doing some benched shooting, and I'll do the best that I can. The M&P 1522 has Smith & Wesson's 1-year warranty and lifetime service contract, so if you ever have a problem with this rifle, you can send it back to Smith & Wesson and they will repair it. And Smith & Wesson historically has been pretty good when it comes to conducting warranty repairs, although I've noticed lately, as in the last few years, the wait time for that work to be completed has gotten a lot longer than it used to be. It used to be a week or two and you would have your firearm back and it would be in perfect condition. Nowadays, it might be a couple of months, 6 weeks, 8 weeks, something like that, before you see your firearm again. So there has been a little bit of a change in the way Smith & Wesson conducts their warranty repairs. So that's going to do it for the up-close shop review of my new Smith & Wesson M&P 1522. Now for the fun part. Let's head out to the range and see how it shoots. And we've arrived on the range with the M&P 1522, and I just finished mounting this Hilux CMR 1-to-8 power scope, and I have a pretty good 50-yard zero, I think. But one problem you run into with the 1522 is the 25-round magazines are so long that it makes it very difficult to shoot from the bench. So what I'm doing when I have the magazine seated is bringing the rifle back far enough that it's not resting the magazine on the bench, but that means I'm sitting sort of weird here, and I'm a little shakier than I would be if I had a good rest. So I'm going to start out shooting at the top right target that you'll see here in just a moment when it comes on the screen, and we'll see what kind of group I can get as soon as I get to where I can see it. Gotta tell you folks, I felt extremely shaky doing that. Let's go take a look at the group and see what it looks like. I don't know if you're going to be able to see this, but that group center to center from the distance of 50 yards is about 7/8 of an inch. So it's coming in under 2 minutes of angle and firing from a very unsteady position. I am pretty happy to get that. I'm going to try one more 3-shot group on this target, and we'll see what happens with that one. All 3 of those shots looked and felt absolutely horrible. So I'm going to drop down to the lower left-hand target and try 3 more shots. That felt a little bit better. Let's go take a look at that group. That group looks a little better too. When I first walked down here, I thought, did I only shoot twice? I had to play the recording back, but this is a double, 2 shots, close enough through the same hole that I couldn't tell the difference when I first walked up just by looking. All 3 shots are in under 1/2 an inch. That's about 7/16 or thereabouts. So sub-minute of angle group from 50 yards. I might need to come up maybe 1 and go left 1, but otherwise that's pretty good. And again, from a shaky rest, this would have probably been tighter yet if I had been steadier when I was shooting, but I am pretty happy with that. In any case, now let's move on and do something else. Folks, the Mad Bomber just showed up 50 yards downrange. Let's use the M&P 1522 and this new Hilux CMR 1:8 scope and see if we can stop him from carrying out his dastardly deed. I can see the hole from here. I don't think our Mad Bomber was able to push that plunger. All right, folks, we stopped the Mad Bomber from 50 yards. Let's see if we can stop his twin brother from 100 yards with the M&P 15. I can't see that one from here. Let's go downrange and see where it hit. That one hit right there. That's 2 Mad Bombers out of action. Now I'm going to try one more thing to wrap up the accuracy test, and that's going to be a 3-shot group from 100 yards. And I don't know if you can see this with the camera angle right now. Let me change things a little bit. I am going to use the center of the Mad Bomber's clock right here on his time bomb as an aiming point and fire 3 shots. I want to measure the drop from 100 yards, and I also want to see what the 3-shot group looks like. So here we go. And I can't see the face of his clock from this distance. And let's see. Yes, I have the magnification dialed up all the way. So what I'm going to do instead is try to hold in dead center of his hand that's holding the detonator. I hope I have that on my target camera. I'm going to have to apologize on this one. My camera aimed at me overheated, and I don't know how much was recorded of what I was saying. But when I got back to the firing point, even with the 8-power magnification, I really could not make out the face of the clock. So instead, I used the center of his hand right here as my aiming point. And my group right there, I'd have to measure it, but it looks like it's sub 2 inches center to center. So again, less than 2 minutes of angle, and the drop looks to be probably 4 inches. Again, I'll measure that just so I know for certain, but you can see what the drop is right there as you look at the target. Now it's time to shift gears and optics as we move on to some defensive drills, and I'm going to be swapping out the Hilux CMR 1-8 for a SIG Romeo red dot optic, and we'll see how the M&P 15 performs with that. Anytime I mention the words 22 and defense in the same sentence, there's always some people that get worked up about that. So I will preface this with my usual reply to those folks. I am not recommending the use of a 22 rimfire for defensive purposes. There are certainly better options out there, but sometimes you have to fight with what you have and not with what you wish you had. Beyond that, when we talk about a 22 rimfire out of a rifle length barrel, I don't want to get hit with that. So if it's something that someone can control and they shoot well and they put bullets where they want them to go, again, this might be the best option for those people. In any case, first up is going to be some controlled pairs from a distance of 5 yards. Let's see how the 1522 does. I can see them from here, folks. 6 out of 6, all on the heart, shooting at that shot tempo. Let's go up and take a look. This is what I was talking about with that controllability of the 22 rimfire out of a semi-auto rifle. 6 out of 6, all on the heart, well centered on the heart. And I was just coming up, putting the dot right there and hitting that trigger, and there was no problem whatsoever keeping all those shots dead center in the chest, right on the heart. Now let's move on to some 7-yard failure drills, and we'll see if we can keep the shots not only in the heart, but also in the head. I can't see those. I'm going to have to walk down range and see where they hit. And there are some smoking failure drills, folks. I did manage to pull 1 shot out of the 6 shots to the body off the heart and into the lung. So we perforated his lung with 1 shot, and I've got 1, 2, and 3 shots in this area of the head, which is basically right where I wanted him to go. So no problem whatsoever. And again, even with a 22 rimfire, putting bullets through the heart and putting bullets through the brain, I think is going to end this guy's day. Quick note here, folks, I forgot to tape up the shot holes after the 5-yard controlled pairs, but since all the shots from the controlled pairs and the failure drills, except one, are on the heart, and obviously these shots up here are from the failure drills, I just used black stickers to tape up everything for now. So next we're going to go back to 15 yards, and I'm going to be trying headshots from 15 yards. I usually do body shots from there with a handgun, but this is not a handgun. It's shooting very well, so I'm going to be doing 15-yard headshots, and we'll see how they go. And a malfunction. All right, let's head down range and see where they hit. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Not bad at all, shooting from back there at 15 yards, practicing headshots, and with the malfunction, which really is not unexpected with a rimfire. That's actually the first malfunction I've had with the 1522, and you saw it right here on camera. I've probably got over 100 rounds through it at this point, and I haven't cleaned it. So we'll see if we get any more or if that's going to be the anomaly. I'll get these taped up and we'll move back to 25 yards. From 25 yards, I'll be doing body shots, and we'll see what things look like from there. And body shots from 25 yards, right where this optic is zeroed. Let's see how they do. Definitely can't see those from here. Let's head down range. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. 1 shot out of the 5. Just barely made it off the heart from that distance of 25 yards. All in all, I'm pretty darn happy with that. All right, folks, let's try some 50-yard unsupported body shots. I'm going to cheat this time and use the 3-power Juliet magnifier, and we'll see how the 1522 does. Let's go find out. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 from that distance of 50 yards. Not the best group I ever shot in my life, but I think we got this guy's attention. It's a good thing I finished up those defensive drills when I did, because some water bottle desperados just showed up on the range, spoiling for a fight. So let's introduce them to the 1522. So much for the fight. Life is hard. It's harder when you're a water bottle desperado. I don't think I mentioned it, but I engaged those desperados from a distance of 15 yards. Now it's time to move on to the next stage and see if the M&P 1522 is a 7-yard tack driver. I'm going to put a tack in the target, back off to a distance of 7 yards, make sure I have 3 rounds loaded into the rifle, and as usual, since this has the offset between the optic and the bore line, I'm going to have to try to guesstimate the holdover and see if I can make the 1522 a tack driver. So let's find out. And here we go. Is the Smith & Wesson M&P 1522 a 7-yard tack driver? I can't tell. I think the tack is still there. Not sure if I might have touched it on that one. I'm going to go down range and look. So no, not on the first shot, but I still have 2 to go. One shot left, folks, to see if it's a tack driver. And no, the 1522 is not going to be a 7-yard tack driver, and that ends a streak. I think the last 3 or 4 firearms that I've tested have all been tack drivers, and I think at least 3 of them were first-round tack drivers. But not today, so ends the streak, and the 1522 is not a 7-yard tack driver. So, final thoughts on my new Smith & Wesson M&P 1522 rifle. Overall, I like this little rifle. It's fun, it's accurate enough for anything you could reasonably ask of it. It's certainly accurate enough for varmint hunting, for probably some small game hunting, and definitely for target use. It maintains all the operating characteristics of the full-size AR-15, so it makes for very inexpensive practice. If you're wanting to just make sure you're keeping up with your firearms handling, manipulation, and all that, and you're not concerned about recoil recovery, then this little rifle works very, very well for that. Again, the accuracy is good, so if you're working on those defensive drills or any kind of drills, and you're concerned about making sure you can get good, accurate shots on target, this is definitely going to do it, and we saw even out to 100 yards. My complaints are relatively minimal. I hate this safety. I do not like the way it feels at all. I wish the charging handle was a little bit different. There are other little cosmetic issues, like the way the pistol grip doesn't quite fit to the rear of the receiver, and I wish there was something better to clamp my sling attachment point to here. But again, those are all pretty minor. Overall, it's a fun little carbine. I had the last one for close to 15 years. I'm probably going to have this one even longer because I like it a little bit better. When it comes to reliability, the only malfunction I have ever had with this rifle is the one you saw in this video. So I now have probably 200 rounds, maybe more through it, and I probably should get around to cleaning it one of these days before my senior drill instructor finds out that I have a rifle that hasn't been cleaned. In any case, that's going to do it for the video today. I hope you enjoyed it. If you have any questions or comments, as always, make sure you forward those to me. Remember, if you purchase anything from Optics Planet, be sure to use my discount code, which is... And if you use that discount code, it's good for 7% off your purchase from Optics Planet. And remember, House of Pain, you can go to House of Pain Armament or House of Pain Munitions and use my discount code there, which is HRFUNK, and that'll save you some money off your purchase from House of Pain. And don't forget the Target sponsor, folks. We saw some more of their targets today. Go to Targets online, check out their inventory, and see if they have anything that's going to meet your target needs. See you next time, and until then, good shooting. Bye-bye.